Hey everybody, welcome to the Rhett Sever podcast, where everybody has Sever fever and says, "Oh yeah, it's on at last." Okay, now, for this episode, we just watched the movie A Clockwork Orange with three other fellas, and they are gonna state their name and how many times their history with the film.
Okay, my name is Coconut, and I've seen the film maybe 10 or 11 times before this.
Okay, you can just talk.
The name's Ocean, and this is my first time seeing this film.
Cool.
Yo, what's up? I'm X. I had never seen the film before, but I read the book. I'm a huge fan of the book. The movie, not so much.
Okay, cool. I have seen, this is probably like the 10th time I've seen this movie. I mean, probably like 6 or 7. It just seems like once you've seen a movie like 2 or 3 times, it seems like you've seen it like 100 times after that. Oh. But I actually thought that the ending, I'm thinking of, because I never knew what to think of the ending, but now I think I have a new understanding of the end.
I think every time you watch it, you rewatch it. I don't think that you can have as strong as opinions as you have.
Right.
The first time you watch, because like this is like the 6th time I'm seeing new perspectives after the 6th time of watching it.
Yeah.
So I had totally different things the first time watching it compared to the second, because you know what's coming and things.
Well, hold on. Before we start talking about the end of the film at the beginning of the podcast, I say we,
right, because the ending's the freshest thing in our mind. Yeah, I guess let's talk about your main comparisons with the book and the film.
Is that what you guys want to talk about?
Yeah, we should hear this first. Yeah.
All right. Well, so number one, and this is kind of a big one, is that if you were just going by the film alone with no knowledge of the book, you would have no idea why it's even called A Clockwork Orange.
Right. I always thought about that. It was the most interesting title.
That's true. I didn't know why it's called.
Does anybody know?
My guess was always that it's basically this juxtaposition of like machine and man.
Yeah. Or I was just thinking just two unrelated objects. Like
It was a very
like an organism and a mechanical man-made thing. And so that's kind of what they're doing to him.
It's more philosophical.
They're mechanically trying to change him, but he's an organism, but they're trying to control him through. Yeah. But explain what.
Well, I'm glad you got that. I mean,
so explain what the book says.
it's not exactly, but it is
those
like
general ideas.
Maybe you got some insider information.
I overthink everything, so
I feel like the title kind of.
I overanalyze everything.
Right, I mean, maybe.
But what does the book say?
Well, it's really interesting because the writer who
Anthony Burgess.
No, the writer in the story.
Oh, the narrator.
Who's no,
the old guy,
the old dude.
Who has his wife.
The one who has his wife murdered and raped.
Yeah.
The writer, when they pop in there, he is writing a story called, guess what?
A Clockwork Orange?
Yes.
Oh.
And he starts to Alex starts to read out loud. He says like, "What are you reading? Like, let me see this." And he starts reading out loud what the guy is writing.
Oh, wow.
And it's like a little a snippet of the
how
theory.
It's found out is different in the writing. Cause
what is it? What does he read?
I read the book, but I was so young, I don't remember it.
Oh, you read the book too?
Of course, but I was so
what
young.
Does he...
So I don't remember.
Just 1 second.
I don't remember verbatim, but it is a snippet of the theory behind Anthony Burgess's. Because Anthony Burgess was fascinated by this idea that they go into a little bit, but not enough, about choice and free will.
Yeah.
As it relates to morality.
Okay.
That was really the thesis of the story.
Right.
And that's why it's so important, the ending, which we'll come to. So A Clockwork Orange is, and Alex actually, this is my other, is it qualm? My other problem with the film is the other problem I have with the film is that when they are testing Alex in front of everybody, after he passes the test with the man who's beating him up and the woman who comes up to him, they start, congratulating him, and they're like singing the praises of the...
Which they did a little bit.
They did, that's fine. Then, like they did in the film, the priest comes up and he objects to
a priest.
the priest, the father, the holy,
the
just like they did in the film.
It's a little like a mockingbird, if you think about it.
Yeah, sure. Okay. And so the priest objects, saying that basically Alex doesn't have any free choice in the matter, and he's becoming brain controlled by the state, and that's not true morality. Then, in the film,
they then get in trouble for in the press later.
Right, but in the film, Alex is smiling and he's agreeing with the state. He's saying, "I am a good boy."
Yeah.
But in the book, he actually objects and he says, "What am I? Am I to be made a Clockwork Orange?" He says that in the book, and he says he doesn't know why the phrase pops into his head, but he just says that sounded like the right thing to say, so he says it. And they have a response in the book.
He got it from the writer.
Yeah, okay. They have a response. The prime minister or whatever. He has a response to Alex saying something. They kind of brush it aside.
It's crazy that
he cut that. I mean, that's great. That's great stuff. I mean,
yeah, that's pretty.
Because that's very surprising. Because
he probably filmed it and couldn't and had to censor it down, didn't he?
Why?
I don't know.
Why?
I mean,
it's not.
Not that bad. I mean,
because he was
for time. Because he's a slow director.
They were the reason for the NC-17 rating.
What was the reason?
It was this film. That was the film.
Yeah, but you'd think it would be the rape.
Yeah, but that's what it was. The NC-17.
Yeah, but not the explanation of Clockwork Orange.
No. He's saying why would they cut that part out from censorship?
Yeah, why would they censor that? What? That's nothing to censor.
Hey, I don't know.
Do you want me to answer for them? I can't.
Well, no, it's just the way you said it. You said it as if that's why. Anyway, whatever.
Okay.
The point is.
So relating then to this idea of choice and morality, okay? In the end of the film, as it was presented, what would you guys say without just from your first impression?
Yeah.
What would you guys say is the moral of that story? What did Alex get cured? He says at the end, "Oh, they cured me all right." What does that mean?
I think it was subversion of being cured.
It's kind of like
subversion of it.
Wait, subversion?
Yes, subversion of the outcome of being cured.
Meaning
that's the whole plot. That's the whole plot of it.
What do you mean the subversion?
So the expectation of you being of the cured and the opposite of it happening. So
what was the
subversion
opposite?
Of
what's the opposite? Not being cured?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
So he beat expectations. He outlived his brainwashing almost. So he was cured from his brainwashing.
Yeah, but at the end, his eyes roll back. Wasn't that kind of weird?
Yeah, it was. But
I think it was ecstasy he was experiencing.
Yes, it was.
From
it was
Beethoven's
exactly. See, when the music was tied back to it.
That's another thing I don't get.
It's always the music tied into it.
They're playing the music again, but he's not being tortured.
No.
Meaning
because they switched his brain over. They did surgical.
Right, because he said I had dreams of the. Right, but then the expression on the nurse is like, no, those weren't dreams. That was real, right?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
we did fuck your brain up.
we
he basically had a lobotomy
because we feel bad.
He had a lobotomy
because we want to be elected again. That's basically why.
What?
Because they want to be elected again. Because it was bad press, and so now they're like, okay, we're gonna unfuck his head so we get good press and get elected. Because that's why they're.
So I'm glad we got to this point. So
if you want to explain.
There's just definitely some interesting things here. Just to point out some thoughts that I was having during the film. One of the we're talking about free will. I think that's an interesting topic to start talking about. At one point, they're describing free will is, does he have free will or not? What happens is that we've conditioned his brain to react badly, to give a physical bad response if he sees certain things like violence, rape, whatever, all of this stuff. And so he has to do the opposite in order to get out of that, meaning he has to do good. in order to counteract, this bad automatic
Does
response.
he have to do good or stay away from doing bad?
See, that's the
He
thing.
doesn't have to do good. He just has to stay away from being
That's
bad.
true, but
Yeah.
that's true, but that's why
Right?
not really. I mean, there was.
No. Think about it.
Well,
Like he's
no,
the only thing
hold
that
on.
they injected him into the sickness.
No.
for him
Trust
to-
me. Hold on.
yeah.
I know. I hear what you're saying. And I can agree. Like, yeah, he doesn't have to do good, and then he can like get back to like a neutral. But like the pain that he felt is immediate.
Yeah.
And so to get out of that immediately, he has to pivot. That's why when he goes, for example, into his parents' house, he feels like this pain or whatever. And then the immediate response is to do the responsible thing and leave. And like go whatever.
Yeah, and like he gave the homeless guy money.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and even not doing the bad thing is the good thing.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So then part of me was thinking, like, okay, that
he's
is
reward-
that different from
and then
all
he's rewarded
society
again.
at all? Like, to what extent are we always
Yeah.
raised like that all the time, and that we are just beings with sexual drives? And, this is what Freud talks about, that we suppress our id, our sexual drive, and in a way that society deems as helpful,
Yeah.
and channel our sexual energy into activities that society doesn't deem good or not.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking this is something that is already
saying
all
that-
the time. Like, it's society.
Right, so you're
like-
saying the government
yeah.
experiment is basically an allegory or symbolism for what society's doing anyway.
I think it's just like the function of society itself is to do what they're talking about.
It's like a peer pressure, yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
But like the government experiment was just that times 10.
Yeah.
With the difference that it's not just society that's changing our ego, our how our sexual energy is expressed, but like the criteria isn't determined by society, but is determined by the government.
Right.
So like it's that it was a small group of people deciding the criteria for how to channel this guy's id.
Yeah, and what I didn't kind of get is like why does the government get bad press? Because it's not like why do they portray it like, oh, the government did something bad, when it's like it doesn't actually seem like that. I mean, aside from him getting injected with what God knows what he got injected with, that I guess is bad. But otherwise, like, but no, I guess you shouldn't be able to control people.
But what were they
people do need free will.
What were they doing overall to try and? What were they trying to discover with it? Like him? It's subjecting him to that poison and that.
Well,
test.
no, I guess I take it back. I guess it is bad that the government takes away our free will.
They're saying it's totalitarian.
Yeah, of
Right,
course. Of
right.
course it is. Yeah.
Yeah, but if it's only happening to the convicts, then
wow.
No.
I've been there. I've been a convict. You
Okay. Well, no. I mean, no. I'm playing devil's advocate. I don't agree with government experimentation.
Can I sneak
But-
in here?
But yeah, what?
Okay, so I'm gonna give you a little bit more backstory
Okay.
about Anthony Burgess.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, this is unrelated, but it's important to know that I'm pretty sure all of us in this room and most people who are familiar with Clockwork Orange only know Anthony Burgess for that work.
Right.
But he actually wrote like 40 different novels.
Right.
And he was also a composer and wrote a bunch of music, like classical music. He wrote symphonies and operas. Okay. This is like a very sensitive guy.
Yeah.
Now his whole thesis, this was kind of like his Stairway to Heaven. This book. This no.
Oh.
It was the work that he didn't really care about all that much, but it was turned into an idol. And he almost resents this book
Being
for
famous for it. Right?
Yeah, he thinks that he actually wrote a lot better stuff.
And it's
than
partly
this.
Kubrick's fault too.
Probably.
Right, yeah.
Well, his main thesis with this book, as we kind of have been talking about, is free will and fate and morality.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to tell you what his conclusion is. Okay? And this is finally where I can reveal the 21st chapter.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Did you not do that?
No, we haven't done that. Okay?
Yeah, so explain that.
So, as we have acknowledged that at the end of the film and at the end of the American version of the book with only 20 chapters, the conclusion, the moral of the story is that Alex has been cured of his brainwashing and he is now free to do violence again.
Right.
And that is what's implied, is it not? By the last scene of the film is him fucking a girl.
It is.
Right. I have
Okay.
another theory, but
Go ahead.
But no, yeah, go.
Now, in the 21st chapter, we open on Alex is now 18. And again, like, he was 15. He's supposed to be 15 in the book. He's definitely not 15. I mean, I'm sure they had to do that for legal reasons. They couldn't portray a 15-year-old. But he's 15 in the film. So 3 years have gone by. Or in the book, he's 15. And 3 years have gone by. He's 18. He's gotten with a new group of droogs. And they are up to their old shenanigans. You know, with the old ultraviolence. Okay? The only problem is that now Alex feels a certain dissatisfaction with himself, really. And the last scene of the book is him telling his droogs that he has to think about things. And he walks away because you know what it is he meets up with an old droog of his from the previous gang.
One who's like a police officer now?
No, a different one.
Okay.
Who's now married.
Okay.
And he like has this revelation where he decides that he doesn't really have a taste for violence anymore.
Okay.
And he decides that he wants to try to find a wife and have kids and settle down and have a family. And so the reason that that the American publishers decided to cut this chapter and this conclusion is that they thought it was too sappy, and they wanted something spectacular.
And if you save yourself.
So they wanted something spectacular for the American public, really shocking. So they wanted to leave people with this really kind of depressing, like, evil conclusion. They wanted they wanted it to like freak people out. But Anthony Burgess, right? His intention was going back to what you were saying about the id and society and aren't we all just basically compelled not towards good but away from evil, right? But Anthony Burgess is suggesting that is the first stage of the development of the psyche is being compelled away from evil because of the consequences of evil.
Mm-hmm.
But Anthony Burgess's claim is that the second stage, when you really become mature, is when you're actually compelled towards good because of the consequence, because of the rewards of good. And that is his whole thesis of this story. Is that
I like that.
Is that it's
and that was the 21st chapter.
That
basically,
is the 21st chapter.
Is that he's now compelled
he's
towards good.
Now being compelled towards good, and that is why this book is a masterpiece. And it's like hard because a lot of
except the American version.
Except the American,
Wow.
but then no, and what's crazy is that when Anthony Burgess found out, the publishers were like, "Yo, we're gonna publish this, but we're gonna cut this chapter." He was so pissed,
Right.
but there was nothing he could really do about it because, like, I don't know, maybe he had some contractual obligation, right? But then, so he started fighting it for 20 years. He was fighting this version because he said, "This is not my work." Like, this dramatically completely alters.
Right.
Completely. Disfigures his work, right?
Because the publisher's thinking about money, and
Right,
he's
right.
thinking about my art.
His integrity.
Yeah.
So finally, after 20 years, the publishers released an apology in the book.
Wow.
And they released an author's note from Anthony Burgess saying, for 20 years, you guys have been reading the wrong version. Finally, for the American public, here's the full, complete text.
Wow.
And so it's very noble. It's harkening back to something that I think is lost for the most part in American society, is this idea of morality and virtue that's like based on, that's not based on society. That's not like just laws telling you what you shouldn't do.
Based on action.
It's well, no. I guess he's saying it's based on, it's based on your character. It comes down to character.
Well, and society's peer pressure too.
Not what you say, it's what you do.
Yeah.
But what I mean is that
you're charitable, you're sympathetic, you're endearing.
What I mean is that
you do things of great action.
So Burgess is suggesting that right now in American society and in the society that the characters are living in, basically the argument is that man is beastly, and therefore we have to create laws to prevent him from enacting his violent tendencies, his natural violent tendencies. The presupposition of the government is that man is evil and must be controlled.
I've heard that.
This is classic like Hobbesian psychology.
Right, like are we philosophy. By nature good or bad?
Right.
Yeah,
and so
the black and white is so tired.
So
I don't believe that at all.
What do you think it is? Man is ultimately good, but sometimes bad, or ultimately bad and sometimes good?
What?
What is your philosophy?
Define bad. Define good. Define bad. Define good. Define bad.
Well, just define what you think. Well,
okay.
Anyway.
So
okay.
Yeah.
So the idea is that basically, if there were no laws, man would do evil and create chaos, and society would be finished because of man.
Well, we'd have to self-govern.
Well, exactly. Well, that's the thing is that this
Rittenhouse is it? No, just kidding.
This presupposition of the government is actually just a tool by the government to continue to have power. Because the actual fact is that we're thinking reasonable creatures who can see the consequences of our actions in real time. And we can see that if we do violence against someone else, that only creates a worse world. Right?
Yeah,
it's only mad people. It's only people who are wrong, who are wrong in their reasoning, that don't care about the consequences of their actions. And this is another problem. This is something very serious that needs to be,
right. Do you think that's mental illness?
Well, we can get to that, but for the ordinary person, the reason that somebody does good is not because there is a law that says that they'll go to jail when they do something bad. It's because they value good in and of itself. And that's a very un-American thing.
I don't think it's possible to have like a notion of good without also having a notion of bad. And so like the very idea of like you're talking about how there's a first and second stage, where first we do things because we fear the consequences of doing other stuff. So first we do good because we fear the consequences of doing bad, and then at a second stage we do good because we actually want to. So you're talking about how there's two stages there. And the first stage, defining the consequences for actions, for what is bad, is exactly and precisely what defines what is good. So like, and whoever's doing this defining of like what are the criteria for badness are also implicitly defining what is good in society. And so like this is where like you've got like someone like Nietzsche or like whoever talking about how morality changes in every society because you have different people who are in control of what the dominant criteria for bad behavior will be. So like in our society, not stealing, all these things are bad behavior, and the good behavior is getting a job, whatever they were saying at the end, a job, marrying.
No, they didn't
having
say
kids.
No,
or whatever. But just in
in our
society,
society, yeah. And so those are like the good norms, and then the bad ones are stealing and vandalism, and you have to be good to private property.
Well, it seems like laws are made. Just 1 second. It seems that laws are made it's always in reaction to something happening, and now a new law is made to counteract that happening again. In terms of specific things, but right, all the big laws were made at the beginning of time, but do you know what I mean? It seems, and so, but then at the same time, it seems like, you know, the government is just like the sociopaths who want power, and they're just projecting their negative views and then thinking that, right, we have to just react to the negative, be reactionary, because they're just projecting their sociopathology of wanting power and all, from wanting power and everything, so they're just projecting. But I don't know, but at the end it seems that he was doing the 21st chapter kind of in terms of he was thinking of getting married, because it's like a marriage thing.
Yeah,
but also she's riding him, so it's not like she's being raped.
Yeah,
I think that's actual consensual sex.
That's interesting. That's an
so
interesting
I
point.
think maybe he did.
That's a really interesting point.
Because then I was thinking like, oh no, I'm still like I was thinking maybe like it's like a Maya Angelou thing, like the why the cage bird sings, like basically what he meant is, you know, you can't imprison my mind, in terms of the last shot of him having sex is like the freedom of his mind, you know, not being imprisoned in your mind, always being free in your head, despite, you know, what the world tries to do to you.
Did that happen
or
in the
imprison
book?
you.
Like as a real event, like that last scene there?
No, I think it was maybe about the last shot. It's like, why are they violently having sex? Do you know what I mean? But it's like they're violently.
No, I mean they were. I would say
having consensual sex.
Enthusiastic.
But then it's interesting because it's like, is it consensual? But it's also violent as a residue of what's left over from his rape.
Or just like
I don't know,
rape
man.
fantasies. But then, you know what I mean? Like, that was interesting.
What was
that
more...
last scene looked consensual.
No, it is consensual. But I'm saying it is violently consensual.
No. I was
in
just
terms
saying
of
enthusiastic.
In terms of like, they're still trying to remind you like he's into rape.
Especially in the context of this
but
film.
This is like a rapist version of consent.
No. All I'm saying is, bro.
Well, I don't know. Like,
bro, all I'm saying is that when I know what consensual rape looks like. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, that doesn't make any sense.
It does make sense.
What does that mean?
Consensual.
Because that's the opposite meaning of what rape is. It's unconsenting.
Right, but
some people have like fantasies about it.
This is a thing that people.
Right, right.
And they want it to be enacted on them.
Oh, that's what you mean. A rape fantasy kink.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's like safe words and stuff.
Right.
So, but that what we were saying there, I would call that pretty vanilla, wouldn't you?
I'll call it vanilla.
Pretty vanilla is a nice stripper name.
I mean, right.
If
pretty
anything,
vanilla.
This actually raises an interesting point about, like, that kind of connects to what we were talking about before. Like, okay, you know, question of, like, rape fantasies and consensual sex. In the end there, okay, I don't know, like, to what extent we call that violent, but even if it was, that would be interesting. Because it would mean that, like, he has now redirected his sexual energy instead into rape as, like, a thing, into a kink, into the fantasy of it that is somehow consensual.
Yeah.
So, like, he's like even managed to take the rape desire and turn it into a consensual thing. Yep. And so that's really interesting, like, on that level.
Yeah, because it looks like she's, you know, about to be thrown off a bull riding after 8 seconds. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I think we're really looking at those hip movements there.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's interesting. Like,
but don't you think so? For me, what was more concerning about the film was his responses to those Rorschach questions.
They were like jokes. Like,
but in his responses were violent.
So they're trying to show that he got out.
That he's back to normal, right?
So I don't think we can judge it just by the sex because
Well, that's all we have though to go by.
But we don't, because whether
Dude, maybe that's the reinterpretation of the 21st chapter.
all I'm saying is that, like, you mean like very shortened?
Right,
What I'm saying
shortened
is-
into one shot.
What I'm saying
because
is
it's a
that
wedding
they removed
procession.
The conditioning. They removed the conditioning. Now he quote unquote has the free choice, even though we're saying that society does this overall.
Yeah.
And he chooses to redirect his fantasy into a consensual thing
Wedding.
instead of just consensual rape fantasy. We're assuming it's a thing. But
Well,
wait,
and he's agreeing to the marriage aspect of I'm
Maybe.
gonna be good and get married
Maybe.
because it seems like a wedding
It seemed like that.
and
what-
like rice being thrown or something,
Something, yeah.
and they're in like kinky bride and groom like
That's true.
Are
they?
something they have something on that I think is like they're the bride and groom. I don't know, but
I like to hear.
My concern is that, okay, but before they have the rape fantasy or like the wedding fantasy.
We're
the kink.
We're very hesitant on whether it was even but if it, let's just say that it is because it's more interesting that way.
Well, it has to be
Before they
one of the
have-
craziest
before they have-
last shots of a movie. Like
Before they have the wedding scene,
I think it's very significant.
He just responds to her questions, indicating that he wants to do violence.
Yeah.
The mere fact that you can keep talking about the film
No,
to this
but-
point is
but
a
you're
mere fact that it is a good
yeah.
film.
Yeah, but you're
can't-
saying
you-
that
you
what's
talk down
incomplete
listen,
about that.
I can't be here and you say that it's not a good film, right? It's not a good.
Well, he's just comparing
good?
it.
There are some good things about
You're saying
it.
it's
but-
below good.
Well, no. All I'm saying is that I'm a little disappointed.
But what about the visuals?
Well, yeah,
No?
because you know why you hyped your own self up in your head with this other book, the book of it. So you have this.
Dude, I mean, it's so hard to get a movie that.
It's gonna
Well,
match what
especially
you.
when the book is that
the whole
bad.
the story you played in your head.
All the only reason I'm disappointed is that I don't know if Stanley Kubrick got what Anthony Burgess was going for.
Right, because he cut out the Clockwork Orange explanations.
Yeah, but that wasn't Stanley Kubrick's fault necessarily. You know that, right? Like,
no,
she
he
wasn't
has
acting
final
on it.
cut. He was one of the few directors to have
I
final
know, but
cut.
you don't think there weren't people like leaning on him to do or not
Well,
do certain
maybe.
things too, right? You know,
maybe.
What I was kind of interpreting.
Then that was the same with all his other films.
My impression was that this was a version of Burgess that was very much intended to be watched by the common man as a shocking sort of like just like piece.
So at the end of the
so what was disappointing is that I don't think Burgess was writing for the common man. I think he was writing for somebody who's a little more sensitive, and I was just a little bit disappointed that the film was not as sensitive as I thought it should be.
lesson or what do you mean?
I don't know if there is a lesson.
Well, no, but you're saying no, right? Not that there's a lesson,
That's a question
but
you
I'm
should
just
ask.
saying
Yes.
the ideas in the book.
Dear teacher,
No,
tell us,
just
what's
whatever.
the lesson of the film that you just
Shut up!
watched
I
for
didn't
the
mean
first
that.
time?
I meant
What's the lesson?
the information he was getting across in the book. You're saying didn't fully get across in the movie.
I think it was there for somebody who's read the book. They would say, "Yeah, okay, I understand." But I
Okay.
think for just the film itself was not. So what's interesting? Well, here's a really really interesting thing is that in the book it's completely first person narrative
From Alex.
from Alex's point of
Okay.
view. So you get all this deep like interaction between himself and the reader.
Well, that's
Yeah.
always tough, getting a first-person
is.
narrative book
It
into
is.
a film.
It is. It's really tough. It's really tough.
hard. I mean,
Like, does he explain why he was evil?
Right.
Did he explain
Right.
why he was evil?
you have to tell the narrative in such a different way than the book even gave you the path for.
So he doesn't
To be a
explain.
shadow of it.
He doesn't explain
Yeah.
why he's evil, but here's another really interesting thing that they cut, and I'm sure they cut it.
Okay.
I'm sure they cut it because it wouldn't have been able to be shown.
Oh,
but
okay.
but again, like remember, he's 15 when this book takes place,
Yeah.
right? So when he's at the record store and he picks up those girls,
Yeah.
those girls are 10 years old.
Yeah, that's
Right?
messed up.
And when he takes them back to his room, he drugs them.
Oh God.
Yeah. And
Right,
then
they didn't even
and then-
portray that.
and they
yeah.
didn't.
Of course.
And
Well,
then-
what the fuck would they?
And then he drugs himself. He takes some sort of he injects himself with either like heroin or some drug that makes him turn into a lion, like a vicious monster.
Oh my God.
He says that in his own words that
Heroin doesn't do that.
no, it
makes you go
doesn't.
to
It
sleep.
doesn't. But like, yeah, like
They call
it might be something like a mixture of something. I don't
Maybe
know.
like cocaine or something.
Probably some mixture.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. But it says that like he like it's very, very sinister from his
He's
point
like
of view.
raping them.
Well, it's more than that. It's like it's becomes sick and
Do they
twisted.
die?
Like
I used to
no,
see
they
a
don't.
guy,
Okay.
He was like beating like with like drumsticks on a thing, and like he's fucking freaking out. I'm like, I want what he's on.
Oh my God. Whatever. No. Just. Okay, so wait a minute. So
What
what is suggestive in the movie is that remember when she's getting on her clothes and
Yeah,
then he
he
goes
takes
back
off her
and
clothes.
takes off her
Yeah.
clothes. Yeah.
That's
So
like
he's kind of suggesting a.
right in the
As much as he
book
can.
in the book they're saying like he says like these girls didn't expect Uncle Alex to like have such demanding. He didn't expect them to be so demanding. The girls didn't
Yeah.
expect him to be so demanding, and they start like saying like stop, like they start
Yeah.
pushing him away, and he's like no,
Even
no, no,
though
no.
after they've been drugged.
Yeah, well
Yeah.
he just makes them get really drunk.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he just like won't let them stop.
So it's basically Anthony Burgess. You're saying he's like a sensitive guy who this is almost like a book about his horror of the world that he's, this world is fucked up, right? The whole thing about are we ultimately like good or bad, and how we should really govern ourselves in terms of like, is it the government's job or is it just society's job?
Who and how.
Oh, you're saying
People
that
used to
right
get
in
married
this
at 15. You see what I'm saying?
right. So back even when he wrote the book, it
No,
wasn't
no,
that
no.
crazy.
No, it was still crazy.
No,
It was
no,
still
but
crazy.
what I'm saying, I'm just talking
No,
about
but the
in history of
ages-
humanity.
Yeah, it was
question of their age
I mean, we're talking
wasn't
like,
as
we're
crazy.
talking like 200, 300 years ago that it was like
Not really. I'm talking like
No,
100
that's-
years ago.
That's not. And plus, even they gave Elvis a pass with Priscilla.
how old? What was it?
She was 15.
And how old is he?
He was 20 something.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I'm just saying, 10, bro, 10. That's
No,
not
no,
good.
I know. I know.
I know. I'm just
It's
giving,
crazy.
I'm just giving
No,
one
no, no.
example.
It's crazy, but I'm
Of
saying
like- Yeah, it's true.
it
of just
wasn't
a
as
moral
crazy
judgment.
back then.
Yeah,
No,
sure.
it's
But
not-
yeah.
No, but there have been times in humanity
Yeah,
where
it
that's
was
not
normal.
even crazy. It's
Right.
just like okay and expected that you're getting married off at like.
Which is
that
why
young of
he
an
wrote
age.
that they were 10, because that's like really young.
He's trying to just push. I think he's just trying to like show
It's
their.
shocking. It's
He's-
shocking.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to even show. He's using these crazy like things that, when you think about it from the perspective of the writer, right? What examples is he going to use? He's going to use those examples that demonstrate something that we, with like our morality, would think is wrong, to make a point about how even our morality is constructed with the society that we're living in.
Well, and I also right, and that
See? 'Cause
one,
if it
an
wasn't
important point to
shocking-
that.
If it
Yeah.
wasn't shocking, then we wouldn't actually learn anything. Like there wouldn't.
Right, you have to
the point wouldn't be
exaggerate.
made. The point
No,
wouldn't
yeah,
be
you have to
made.
exaggerate in your examples, right?
Yeah.
So, but also the example of the structures in society that are supposed to create us are our parents, and the parents seemed like that's one of the things I think they got right in terms of this dystopian future, is that the parents are like oversensitive and like want the best for their child, and that's probably why he's a spoiled ass brat, just fucking doing whatever he wants, because the parents over coddled him, and so like the dad is like afraid of him.
Yeah, but they're also very detached and kind of neglectful at the same time. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
it's
but
this
I
interesting
think
mix.
they're seeing it as, no, we're just trying to do the best for our child. Do you know what I mean? Because he was a spoiled ass brat, clearly, and that's one of the things I think
I don't know if we really got that, like as in brat.
I got that, the parents are fucking
I mean, they have a
over-coddled.
sick house, but
Because I don't even know if that was popular to dye your hair in the 60s, 70s. Like, that wasn't until, like, the 90s people seemed to start doing that. But I don't know. Or the 80s, 90s. But anyway.
Yeah, I think you're getting on something interesting, though.
But just as a detail in terms of him predicting the future with styles and everything. But no, with the parents being, like, over-coddling and sensitive, that definitely was spot on in the future, because that seems like what we're going into in terms of we are getting more sensitive and over-coddled. And there's, like, this new book called the Coddling of the American Child or something. And it's basically how, like I saw this video today. It was a viral video. I don't know if you guys saw it. This little kid, like, he's like 4 or 5, he runs into this restaurant, pushes his mom or some lady out of the way, just pushes her out of the way, and then he hops on this, like, refrigerator, and then the fridge falls on him, and then everybody has to rush and go save the kid from dying from the fucking fridge. So if you could kind of view that as, like...
Is that really coddling, or is that just saving...
Well, no, but but the mom is pushed out of the way, like, oh, it's another time he pushed me. Like, she didn't react and scold him at all. It was just like, oh, my kid pushed me again. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it was kind of messed up. Like, if I pushed my mom like that, like, I would have been yelled at, like, right away. Like that wouldn't have happened again. But this happened, like, that was, like, the 500th time he pushed his mom and got away with it. And she's like, okay. And then he goes and jumps on something, almost dies. But it's just funny because it's almost like a Clockwork Orange in one shot, where it's like, you know, the brat almost kills himself, and now we have to save him even though he fucking did his own bullshit. Do you know what I mean? Like... that, like, that's basically, like, where we're at, is, like, because, like, then they feel so sorry for him that, oh, the government did this experiment on him, when it's like he killed somebody. Like, how bad are we supposed to feel? Like, if you're gonna do an experiment, yeah, do it on the murderer. Like, who, like, does anybody really care? But they act like they're still, like, feel bad, like, and it just seems like we have to still, like, I get that we have to evolve and be better, more kinder people, but at the same time, you can't let people get away with being a spoiled ass brat. Do you know what I mean? That's where we're overcorrecting, and we're making a bunch of spoiled brats now that are getting away with, you know, like, they joke about how the kids control the family now, like, and it used to be the parents.
That relationship between the old and the young there with the beggar.
Yeah.
It was like, it's the younger generation that is beating up the old.
Yeah.
And the old is just like, you know,
and then he narrates, oh, now the older people are having a go at the young.
When they
where it's like us versus them.
When they can, because the guy is defenseless. So, like, this kind of creates a situation where when the young person, you know, what they're doing is reflective of, like, social norms or whatever, and that these can be, like, social norms, like, amongst the youth. I don't know.
Of what are the norms?
I'm just thinking about, like, in today's society, like, your average kid today is just, like, doing some random shit, and, like, it's not good as, like, as, like, their parents would have thought it. But, like, they're, you know, playing Minecraft all the time, doing who knows what, TikTok, all that shit. And the parents can't yell at it. Because they're not everyone's that bad. Doing it. Because it's not that bad, and everyone's doing it.
It's not like they're committing a crime like bored kids used to do.
Exactly.
Like graffiti and stealing.
And so, I'm going to let it all happen, do whatever you want, as long as you're not committing a crime, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And so then... But then, like, it's because that kid had, like, the defense, you know, of, like, social norm. You see what I'm saying? But when the kid was, like, defenseless, Meaning
Stop!
What?
What the fuck, dude? How can you put cashews on his bed?
You laughed at fucking like. See, this is like the spoiled generation I'm talking about.
Right. You're right.
What do you mean?
No, I'm just
what,
kidding.
bro? What?
But like, why did you laugh about spilling them all on the bed?
I'm just wondering how you said what after. Like you were like confused as to why he was like.
What are you doing? Wait, you didn't get that messed up, did you?
What?
Are you high?
No.
Anyway, no. What do you mean? His defense was the social norms. What was the social norm and how's he using that as a defense?
So, like, for example,
like that's interesting.
Right? Yeah, I'm saying like, when the kid is doing TikTok all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, nowadays.
Yeah.
Right. The kid has or wants a phone. The kid when he, when he can't like break, he can't.
He
break
doesn't
the
have
law.
free. He doesn't have free will to defend himself.
Yeah, he doesn't have defense, and so.
But they don't know that, right? The homeless people probably didn't read the story in the paper and know that.
No, they didn't.
Yeah.
But he didn't have physical. I guess more what I'm doing is drawing an analogy.
Uh-huh.
So it's not exactly what the film is saying, but I'm just drawing an analogy from that interesting like young old thing, and then like how it just the defense aspect.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think I'm drawing more of an analogy. I don't think it's
just in general. Back in the day, kids were kept in check, and now they're not as much.
Yeah, and the result is that like the parents suffer, and then when the parents suffer, they want to act it back out on the kid. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like do that, and do that in those moments where the kid doesn't have this kind of social defense.
Well, it sometimes. Right, it's like how far does it go for them to finally. Yeah.
So you've got that interplay there between like.
Oh, you're saying there's a real life version of that where they don't have a defense.
Yeah.
When?
I'm saying like for example like if a kid has some kind of activity that's just like the parent perceives as weird, but the kid doesn't have some kind of like defense.
Right, because it wasn't in the parents' generation, this normalcy of online all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also they don't have a defense for their own age, then the kid might get abused. Like, I don't know. I'm spitballing ideas.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just thinking about how the parent might act back on and in what moments.
But anyway, I don't know how we got onto this, but
Yeah,
no, it's crazy. Like
that kind of speaks to the whole tolerance thing. You know, it's like tolerance and the whole thing is like, oh, you have to tolerate everything is one of the most like oppressive things.
Yeah.
Because if you tolerate everything, you also have to tolerate intolerance.
But are you talking about like, tolerance in terms of people's demographic or like something like violence? Like what type of tolerance are you talking about?
I'm talking in the general everything. Like it's just
tolerating other cultures or
just
tolerating violence. Like which
anything.
One? Well, no, but those are two separate.
Can we get this back
tolerating.
to the movie?
No, yeah, it's true. It's just Anthony Burgess, presents very many interesting ideas.
No, you can like spin off.
No, yeah, I know,
ways.
yeah.
It's a mark of a great work.
Yeah.
What I think is getting a little maybe away from some of the ideas.
Yeah.
Are that I don't think there's very much nuance in this film. I think it's a clear debate. It's really not about like particular morality. I think he's talking about universals. I think we see the crimes that these boys were committing is theft, rape, and murder. Theft, rape, and violence. Yep. Physical violence. These are the three. What other crimes do we see them committing?
Yeah.
So it's not a question about particular like nuances. It's a question about is it right to steal, murder, and rape, and so when we're talking about this, it's not like society's telling us this. I mean, we all pretty much collectively agree that it's not right to do it,
right,
and yet
right.
Of course people still do it, and it's like fucked up. No, it's not about what's right and wrong. It's about what people are doing. He's totally okay with the standard of right and wrong that society's setting.
And the government
But
laws.
all he has a problem with is compelling people by force to obey those laws. He wants people to obey the laws, but he just wants them to choose to obey them because he wants people to basically prefer a harmonious society just for that sake.
I can agree with that.
Wait.
But that's different from the point you made last time.
Wait, that's interesting. Are you saying that maybe there was a real life experiment, something that he was afraid of like this, or
No, that's not what I'm saying at all.
what was he
I'm not-
afraid? No, but what was he? What didn't he like in real life that was, basically the stand-in for this government experiment in the movie?
Well, it's an
Like-
anti-totalitarian piece.
right.
It is.
It's anti,
it's communist, anti-communist.
government philosophy, right?
It's anti-USSR. I mean, it's
Right.
It's anti-fascist. So it speaks to those two.
Well, it's anti-totalitarian.
So the
whether
government
it's capitalist
experiment
or
stood in for
communist.
communism,
but
right?
I mean, it was anti-communist because it's not communist theoretically, but just that communism was happening during the time he was writing it, and he.
And
didn't
that's
like-
what stood in.
But he didn't. But I mean,
Yeah.
he didn't like the way that the USSR was treating its
True.
subjects. So.
Oh, right.
But-
So it's a commentary or criticism
So it's
of
it's two
Russia
things.
and
Yeah, it's two things.
communism, right?
That's implicit in
Okay.
in the piece,
right.
and some would say it's explicit because
Right.
it takes place in a Russified England,
Yeah.
in a Soviet England.
Right.
But it's really not as much about that as it is about where somebody's happiness comes from. Does it come from them having their freedom, right? Like unadulterated freedom,
Uh-huh.
and that if what makes you happy is to murder and steal things, then that's okay as long as you're free. That's not his
But
argument.
then pay the price from society.
Well,
Right. Or go to jail or whatever, right.
But that's he's saying that is not like acceptable. He wants you to be held to a standard of virtue. This guy, like, it's not a very common, it's not a very popular belief to believe in virtue anymore. But but Burgess is he believes in like the old Greek, like Hellenic virtue.
Yeah.
So that's just his
So he's saying
thesis.
people should just deal with the consequences naturally of society.
No.
No,
If
he's saying
you're
that
going to choose to do
he's-
something bad.
No, he's saying that
You're going to hold your actions above others, too.
Impose their philosophy on people like communism.
Well, so basically, if Alex had served his 14 years
Mm-hmm.
and had come out
Mm-hmm.
and still desired to do violence,
Mm-hmm.
that's not. That's like a reflection on Alex. Is the main point?
Yeah.
Is that he seems unable to grow up.
Yeah.
So Burgess's claim is that to be mature is to behave in line with virtue. And if you can't behave in line with virtue, you're just not mature.
It's not the government's job to rehabilitate society.
I mean, not really. I mean,
Yeah.
it is complicated, but
Yeah.
practically there's not really much you can do. I mean,
Yeah.
you can try to show people, try to instill compassion in them but I don't know. It's tough.
It's just the prisons shouldn't be privatized. But
True.
anyway, but yeah.
But I don't think he's writing to, he's not writing to like the criminal. He's writing to the common man,
Yeah.
and he's using the extreme of a criminal
Uh-huh.
to try to inspire the common man, to
Have virtue.
toward virtue.
And not be a reactionary
We're all the
society that to be preventive instead of reactionary. Because we're such a reactionary society. We don't prevent things. We react to it when it gets, in terms of our health care, our crime, everything is... We wait for things to get bad and then Band-Aid it.
Yeah,
When we should be preventing cancer, with good health. Preventing
True. Yeah, true too. But for
kids
crime,
from going into crime with programs that help
we're all. I don't
give
know,
them
man.
occupation
You gotta answer that
instead
yourself.
of
I don't know.
Okay.
give them occupation instead of just not knowing what to do, so they go off and do crimes.
I mean, but like
Alex's
family was pretty good. I mean, he had a mom and dad and a home.
I know.
So
I just think he was spoiled by them.
No, I really don't think. I mean, in the book, you don't really get that sense. I mean, it seems like he just.
It doesn't explain why he's like the way he is. It does, because that's not the point.
I think his premise is that you start out pretty much like pretty wild, like as a child, like.
Or you
the urge is pretty natural.
You are the way you are. It's like
no. Like just that like it's kind of natural to want to do violent things when you're a child.
Yeah.
It's part of. That's like the whole thing is the journey, the process of becoming mature, is to outgrow your violent tendencies. So I don't think he doesn't see there's anything wrong with like having violent tendencies. But like past a certain point,
my violent tendencies were met with community when I was young.
Yeah, so
when I would step out of line with like violence and stuff, right?
Yeah, so is that what Burgess is trying to say, that it's society's job to rehabilitate or even prevent a criminal, and it's not the government's job
I see where you're going there.
To react to it, right? Because I think that's a pretty good message. Because like, we should be preventing criminals, not, coming up with some.
We all know that eventually leads to the argument of free will. We all know that, right? Free will versus, like, what do we expect of someone? Versus, are they going to be able to meet or that expectation?
Like free will, it needs to be respected. You mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to leave it. Thanks, guys.
It's a big topic. We kind of.
It's a really big topic.
Thank you guys.
Huge topic.
Thank you guys for being on the Rhett Sever podcast. Till next time.